The ancient Egyptians had their great pyramids, the Greeks had their sculptures and temples, and everybody knows about the Maya and their famous calendar. But there are also some other ancient cultures, less talked about, yet far stranger, that left behind unearthly rituals and cryptic practices no one fully understands. And this video is all about them. Today we'll dive into the most mysterious ancient groups that didn't just practice ritual, they breathed it and lived by it. Cult of Bes. One of the strangest ritual systems in ancient history is tied to the Cult of Bes. This obscure Egyptian sect honored Bes, a deity often shown as a dwarf with feline or lion-like traits. His name, meaning cat in Nubian, possibly hints at his origin. He was worshipped over many dynasties. As with most ancient beliefs, Bes's rituals shifted through time, often taking on bizarre new forms. Unlike most Egyptian gods, who were shown in profile, Bes was usually depicted full face, highlighting his unique place in the divine order. During the New Kingdom, spanning the 16th to 11th centuries BC, Bes was widely viewed as a protector of homes and families. His followers believed he could fend off evil, slay serpents, and shield both children and mothers. But over time, he also came to represent pleasure through music, sex, and dance. Many dancers tattooed his face on their thighs, and some even crafted costumes styled after him. One of the most bizarre aspects of his cult involves what they drank. Followers of Bes are believed to have consumed powerful potions from jars shaped like his head. Some of these vessels have been recovered by archaeologists and analyzed with modern science, yielding startling findings. Tests show traces of hallucinogens with effects similar to DMT or psilocybin. These substances were likely used to trigger altered states of awareness. Researchers wrote, "Our tests identified a species from the Clomie genus known for its psychoactive and medicinal effects. Syrian rue stood out because it contains harmon and harmaline, both of which are known for triggering dreamlike visions. The blue water lily was another, valued for its sedative and psychoactive traits. On top of this, fermented alcohol was found, made from honey, fruit, and even human bodily fluids. This suggests the ritual wasn't just spiritual, it may have also held deep ties to fertility. What these altered states revealed to Bes's followers remains unknown. Did they believe they were speaking to the god himself or glimpsing other realities? It raises a real possibility that ancient Egyptians may have understood the effects of these compounds in ways modern science is only now rediscovering. They were ultra geniuses. Thuggies. The name Thuggee comes from the Sanskrit word for deception or concealment. The Thuggies were a feared network of criminals and killers that haunted parts of India from the 13th to the 19th centuries. They moved across huge areas of the Indian subcontinent and became infamous for their brutal ways, especially ambushing and murdering travelers. Their tightly run operations and secretive rules have led some historians to compare them to early organized crime groups, even calling them the forerunners of modern mafias. They weren't one big group, but different bands scattered across the land. Still, the Thuggies shared strange beliefs, rituals, and superstitions, things often tied to cult behavior. They worked through charm and trickery. A Thuggee might travel with someone for days, gaining their trust, and then strike without warning. Victims were almost always strangled using a rumel or cloth, a method that left barely a trace. By going after people on the road, they knew their crimes wouldn't be noticed right away. They don't just blindly attack. Their attacks needed planning. Some acted as lookouts, some as killers, others as decoys. In some disturbing cases, they even took in the children of those they murdered, raising them to become Thuggies themselves. Most members were Hindu, but there were also Muslim followers in the ranks. Many believed they weren't doing wrong, they thought they were serving Kali, the goddess of destruction, by keeping the world's balance between good and evil. Not everyone agrees on how real or widespread they were. Some believe British colonizers blew things out of proportion to tighten their grip and push harsh laws. But based on different reports, the Thuggies may have killed as many as 2 million people over hundreds of years. Their bloody rule was finally broken in the 1830s, mostly due to British campaigns led by Captain William Sleeman. The Thuggee cult was crushed, but its shadow didn't disappear. Its legend still shows up in books, movies, and myths. Even in everyday speech it lives on. The word thug, used today to describe a violent criminal, comes straight from their name. Well, they were not as weird as the people of the Scylla kingdom, but without a doubt, they were deadly. Neolithic Mustatils. When archaeologists recently investigated a 7,000-year-old site in Saudi Arabia, they found evidence of violent practices likely carried out by a cattle-worshipping cult. The site in question is a Mustatils, a rectangular desert monument once used for ceremonial purposes, more than 1,600 of which have been documented across Arabia. Despite their abundance, only 10 have ever been excavated for research. These structures are so ancient that when they were built, the Arabian desert was a sweeping, fertile grassland teeming with vivid plant life and energetic wildlife. A mustatil typically stands around 4 feet high, bordered by low stone walls enclosing central pillars and chambers, some of which contain sacred stones made from metamorphic rock. Some mustatils extended more than 1,500 feet in length and were constructed using stones weighing tens of thousands of tons, making their creation a staggering accomplishment of ancient engineering. Beneath the mustatils, researchers discovered scattered animal bones, and among them were clearly human remains. One individual found was believed to be a male around 30 years old, who had likely died under ritualistic conditions. Neolithic cults used musta as gathering grounds and sites for ceremonial sacrifice, likely spilling the blood of their livestock in honor of a long-lost deity. However, the finding of human remains is an unusual one. The male body recently uncovered was, according to radiocarbon dating, buried roughly 400 years after the animal sacrifices occurred, suggesting these musta sites held deep cultural or spiritual value for many generations and that recurring pilgrimages took place. Little is known about Neolithic cults, with their beliefs and rituals mostly lost to history. For this reason, every mustatil is of tremendous importance to historians and archaeologists who continue to investigate them in hopes of uncovering more insight into these mysterious ritual-driven killers. So what do you think about these mysterious ancient structures? Well, drop your theory below. Now let's move to Mithraic mysteries. The Mithraic mysteries, also known as the Cult of Mithras, consisted of an esoteric religious movement that thrived among select Romans from the 1st to the 4th century AD. Centered around the worship of the deity Mithras, this cult held major sway, especially within the Roman imperial army. Followers believed Mithras was born from stone before ceremonially slaying a bull and later sharing its flesh in a feast with Sol, the sun god. Many of their customs, ceremonies, and spiritual beliefs mirror those seen in modern cults, including multiple initiation tiers, cryptic hand gestures, oaths of secrecy and loyalty, and a view of their doctrine as a direct challenger to rising Christianity. Preceding Christianity in Rome, the cult is known to have gathered in subterranean temples, many of which still exist today. Historians and archaeologists have extracted some remarkable insights from these underground sanctuaries, known as Mithraea, along with the relics, engravings, and statues unearthed within. The bull-slaying scene is central to all Mithraic symbolism and appears consistently across all excavated Mithraea. Zodiac motifs are also common, hinting that the mysteries may have been a cult of ancient stargazers. Typically built beneath pre-existing buildings, these Mithraea represented the soul's descent, ensuring initiation rites remain private and sacred. It is believed initiates passed through 7 levels of induction, each tied to a planet or celestial object. Certain phases involve trials demanding tests, often requiring exposure to pain or peril, performed in pits beneath the temple floor. The most well-known Mithraeum lies under Rome's Basilica of St. Clement. It wasn't fully examined until 1914, revealing a narrow, dimly lit space with an altar resembling a sarcophagus and prominently displaying the recurring bull-killing image. Owing to the cult's secretive nature, hard evidence remains scarce. Still, it's believed that worshippers assembled in these temples not only for rites, but also to reenact sacred banquets resembling the meal Mithras shared with Sol. They may have also recreated other sacred acts, including the ritual slaughter of bulls. But as we said a lot of times, our history is missing and mysterious. Flagellation. Few cults have ever exhibited such savage commitment to their beliefs as the flagellants, who engaged in relentless mortification of the flesh. Flagellation refers to the practice of whipping oneself privately or publicly as a form of shared suffering with Jesus Christ, or in response to natural disasters like failed crops or ensuing famine. From this brutal self-harm emerged a 13th century movement known as flagellantism, whose followers, called flagellants, would publicly scourge themselves and one another while wailing scripture and begging for divine forgiveness and mercy. The arrival of the Black Death in 14th century Europe caused flagellant numbers to surge, with more people convinced that God had sent the plague as punishment. The sheer horror of the disease drove many to extreme despair, whipping themselves mercilessly in hopes that God would witness their agony and show mercy. Flagellation took several forms, the most common being to lash oneself across alternating shoulders using a seven-thonged whip known as a discipline, each strand symbolizing one of the deadly sins. Other acts included wearing rough, irritating garments or fasting for long durations. Some ceremonies even featured temporary crucifixions, chains bound tightly around the legs, or pounding one's chest with boards studded with spikes and needles. Others regarded the bearing of a heavy wooden cross as another form of flagellation. After the plague faded, flagellant groups quickly declined. Authorities, particularly the Catholic Church, aggressively cracked down on them, labeling the movement a heretical cult. Yet even today, the act of flagellation survives in some spiritual circles, with a few devout Roman Catholics still practicing it. The blood eagle of the Vikings. The blood eagle was a savage execution method allegedly performed by the Vikings. Still, its historical accuracy and practice remain debated among modern scholars. As legend tells it, in this ritual, the victim was immobilized and their back was sliced open to expose the ribs. The ribs were then cracked and pulled outward to resemble the wings of an eagle. Finally, the lungs were extracted and draped over the shoulders. The purpose behind the blood eagle remains disputed by historians. Some believe it was a sacrificial offering to the Norse gods, while others claim it served as punishment, maybe for betrayal. It was reportedly reserved for those deemed worthy or defiant, meant to showcase Viking dominance and fearlessness. Its horrifying nature also acted as a stark warning, bolstering their fearsome reputation. Whether fact or folklore, the blood eagle continues to evoke awe and terror, reinforcing the enduring perception of Vikings as ruthless warriors. It symbolizes not just brutality, but the dark theatrics of Norse justice and belief. Thaumogenesis. Thaumogenesis was a mythical phenomenon said to occur when individuals attempted to bring their loved ones back from the dead. This unnatural resurrection process was believed to summon demons, resulting in the formation of two spiritual entities and a portal between dimensions. One of these entities was the intended resurrected soul, while the other was a malevolent spirit born of demonic essence. Because the ritual opened a dimensional rift, it allowed infernal energy to seep into the world of the living and attach itself to the revived spirit. Upon arrival, this energy could evolve into an entirely new demonic being. In essence, Thaumogenesis was viewed as a spiritual consequence, an unseen debt owed for tampering with the balance between life and death. The concept warns of the unforeseen dangers behind meddling with forces beyond human comprehension. Though rooted in mythology, it represents the age-old fear of resurrection gone wrong, where love-fueled desperation leads to the rise of dark, chaotic forces no mortal was ever meant to summon. So, what do you think about it? The self-mummification of the Buddhist monks. The self-mummification of Buddhist monks, known as Sakushin Butsu, was a real and grueling spiritual rite practiced in Japan from the 11th to the 19th century. The process involved extreme self-denial, where monks slowly reduced their intake of food and water while remaining deeply immersed in spiritual practices. They confined themselves in small, enclosed spaces, meditating constantly as they inched closer to death. Once deceased, their bodies were preserved and enshrined as sacred relics. This ritual was believed to bring spiritual enlightenment and purity, as the monks sought to transcend physical existence through unwavering discipline. By enduring years of intentional suffering, they hoped to achieve divine transformation. While the practice may appear brutal or bizarre by modern standards, at the time it was honored as a noble and holy pursuit. Monks who successfully completed self-mummification were venerated as saints, their preserved remains serving as proof of their spiritual devotion. Sakushin Butsu stands as one of the most physically and mentally intense religious sacrifices ever documented. The sacred marriage of the Babylonians. In ancient Babylonia, marriage rituals took on a form that would seem bizarre by today's standards. Sacred marriages known as hieros gamos were not about love or lifelong companionship. They were divine performances, where humans stood in for fertility gods during public ceremonies. At the heart of this ritual was the symbolic union between the shepherd god Dumuzi and the fertility goddess Inanna, also known as Ishtar. To reenact this celestial pairing, the city's king or high priest would engage in sexual intercourse with a priestess representing Inanna. This sacred act was believed to channel divine energy into the earth itself, blessing the city with fertile fields and fruitful wombs. The ritual wasn't viewed as scandalous, it was sacred. It had nothing to do with family, loyalty, or legal marriage. Regular Babylonian weddings still took place, complete with feasts, music, and dancing, entirely separate from these temple rites. What makes this tradition so fascinating is the Babylonian ability to separate spiritual symbolism from personal relationships. Sacred marriages weren't about romance. They were about survival, prosperity, and keeping divine forces on their side. Let's just hope no one caught feelings during the ceremony. Ancient gods weren't exactly known for their chill. Alright guys, now, let's end this with the Dionysian Mysteries. The Dionysian Mysteries were famed religious rituals observed in ancient Greece and Rome. These ceremonies used intoxicating substances and ecstatic rites to shatter societal restrictions and awaken primal instincts. Participants sought liberation, aiming to reconnect with a more natural, uninhibited self. The mysteries welcomed society's outcasts, slaves, foreigners, and criminals, offering spiritual equality and transcendence. It's important not to confuse the Dionysian rites with the Eleusinian mysteries, which honored different deities and had distinct purposes. While both shared secrecy and reverence, Dionysian worship was more chaotic and liberating. The cult centered on Dionysus, god of wine, fertility, and revelry, celebrating wild ecstasy as a divine force. The rituals often blurred the lines between divine possession and psychological release. Due to their secretive nature, much about the rites remains unclear. Archaeologists and historians still uncover clues, attempting to decode the practices hidden behind their veils. Even today, the Dionysian mysteries echo through culture, symbolizing freedom through surrender and the sacred power of uninhibited expression. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.